Here in Virginia, non-essential businesses are closed. Medical professionals are facing equipment shortages. And the number of COVID-19 cases are growing daily. I know that in other parts of our country and our world, doctors are being forced to make very difficult decisions about who will receive medical care and who will die. I know that countless people are being laid off without warning, facing illness without medical insurance, caring for the infected without adequate protection, watching helplessly as savings drain away, and mourning their dead without the dignity of funerals and memorial services. Here we are, church. Here we are. We are in crisis, watching the world reel and lurch in ways most of us have never experienced before. As the gospel for this fifth Sunday in Lent shows us, here is Jesus holding two angry, grief-stricken sisters in his arms and telling them with absolute certainty that he is resurrection and life. I'll be honest, the story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead is a hard one for me. It's hard. At many levels, I don't understand it. I don't understand why Jesus tells his disciples that Lazarus is asleep rather than dead. I don't understand why he sidesteps Martha's tortured accusation, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And I don't understand why Lazarus virtually disappears from the story once his grave clothes fall off. Why is he never heard from again? In many ways, this story is shrouded in mystery. But today, I cling to the two words of the story I understand. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. For me, this is the heart of the story as we go through COVID-19, this pandemic, the grief that takes hold of God and that breaks God down. That Jesus, the fullest revelation of the divine we will ever have, stands at the grave of his friend and cries. Let me be clear. In focusing on Jesus' tears, I'm not ignoring or minimizing the raising of the dead or the conquering of the grave. For me, the love and compassion of a just God requires the making right of every death humanity has ever endured. Every death that has left us staggering in shock, rage, and grief. For me, our horror in the face of death corresponds to an eternal reality. We were not made for the grave. We were made for life. We were created for life. And we feel robbed when life is taken away. For me, the literal raising of Lazarus is a sign that death will not have the last word in our physical embodied lives. We will be raised. We will be raised. But I hold these joyful beliefs in a world fuller than ever of uncertainty and sorrow. A world where Martha's accusation, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Those words thunder through the ages for their truth and their agony. So So I cherish Jesus' tears right now, perhaps even more than I cherish the miracle that follows them. When Jesus weeps, he gives dignity to human grief. Yes, resurrection is around the corner, as is our own, because right now we find ourselves in our own Good Friday moment, a little earlier than planned. But in this story, the promise of joy doesn't cancel out the essential works of grief. When Jesus weeps, he assures Mary and Martha that not only their beloved brother is worth crying for, but also that they are worth crying with. When Jesus weeps, he honors the complexity of our sorrows and joys. Raising Lazarus would not bring back the past. It wouldn't cancel out the pain of his final illness, the memory of saying goodbye to a life he loved, or the gaping absence his sisters felt when he died. Jesus' tears honors the reality of human change. He grieves because things will never be the same again. And finally, when Jesus weeps, he shows us that sorrow is a powerful catalyst for change. It's because Jesus experiences the devastation of death that he recognizes the immediate need to restore life, and that leads to resurrection. During these last weeks of Lent, as we prepare for Jesus' own death and resurrection, I hope that Jesus' tears can keep us tender, generous, and brave. I hope his honest expression of sorrow, his tears, will give us permission not only to do the work of healing and grief, but to move with powerful compassion into our world that sorely needs our empathy and our love. Yes, we find ourselves in death right now, but we serve a God who calls us to life. Our God calls us to life. Our journey is not to the grave, but through it. The Lord who weeps is also the Lord who resurrects. And in the Good Friday world in which we find ourselves right now, unsettles us, we are eager for the resurrection.